All right. So we're going to look at this real quickly. So basically, color is one of the elements of art you guys learned in intro. And we're going to be going through the basics of color theory with this worksheet. Just to remind you, the first three colors that we're going to be working with are primary triad. So with your pen, you want to write on the top of your worksheet under your name, the primary triad. They are the three colors used in paint pigments that create all of the colors that we'll be working with. So if you want to write, basically it is the first, they are the main colors. That's what primary means, one, the first that create all the colors. So if you want to write that down in your notes that will be on the test. And you can't mix any colors in the color wheel without those three colors. So it is the first that create all of the colors. You want to write that there. And when we're looking, they call it the triad when we are looking at the color wheel, because on the color wheel, it is what it says. It is a triad. So if you guys look, I have on the screen here, you can see the triad, which is, on you guys away. Move this here. It creates that triangle shape. Ready? So yellow, red, blue. And it doesn't matter whatever color combination you use, there's always going to be that triad, which is 1, 5, and 9. Okay? And we're going to talk about, there's several different triads. So on your worksheet, this is the first colors that create all colors. So you can't make orange or green or violet or any of the tertiary colors without that. So with your brush, as you are painting, you are going to dip your paintbrush into the paint. You want to load up your paintbrush, and we're gonna paint in our first area. I don't care if you go outside the circle, but try to keep it. Remember, paint gently at an angle. We don't want the paint to be chunky, but we also don't want it to be transparent, which means you can see through it. So we have nice coverage. On the second worksheet, we're going to be working with complementary colors. Go ahead and paint in the red. We'll learn about that in a little bit. You're going to go ahead and paint in the red. And move that to the side when you're done. And then you don't have to wash your brush out. Since we have several brushes, you can just leave that on your palette. So I'm going to train you on how to keep your palette clean. We only need water to clean our brush if we're going to be mixing colors. And then we use the paper towel to wipe off any excess water from our paint. And the reason I have you using 2 different cups of water is because once your water, the water gets dirty and it turns into a dark brown or black, that will basically turn all of the colors you're painting with dark, which is a term they call muddying your colors. So that's why you always want clean water. As you're working, and if your paintbrush is not cooperating with you, if you feel like it's not soft enough, you can get up and get a new paintbrush. You're going to learn as you start to work which brushes you like to work with. And throughout the week as we're working, you're gonna be able to hold on to your paintbrushes in your storage area. And then at the end of the week, we just have to clean everything so that the next class can use it. If you want to get your own brushes, like I said, you can do that as well. The next thing we're gonna do is yellow, the second primary color. We're gonna do the same thing, fill it in, try and get nice, even coverage. And we're also gonna fill in the yellow area for our complementary section. So we're taking care of that as we go. Gonna set that aside. I don't want to mix my colors, but I don't have to. And then I'm gonna do the last one, which is the blue. Remember, load up your brush. Nice, even coverage, but not too heavy. Then I'm gonna do the same thing over here with my complementary section. If I've got too much paint on the brush, I just roll it off. Notice how when I hold my brush, I actually hold it from the edge, so that gives me less control, so I'm not pushing down too hard. A lot of us naturally want to press down too forcefully. Remember to be gentle. You're gonna see brush strokes. That's why it's painting. The next step that we're gonna look at is our secondary colors. Our secondary colors are green, orange, and purple, and these colors are created when we mix the primary colors together. So, these are second, triad. This is also a triad, and these are created by combining primary colors. These will all be on your final exams. That's why I'm writing, and like I said, we can use our notes on the test. I know you have a lot of information to memorize. I'm a big fan of taking notes. And there's no surprises. So a couple of things as we get started. When we're making when we're doing color mixing, there's a couple of things I want you to consider. When you're looking at your paints, you're gonna notice some paints look darker than others. Obviously, yellow is the lightest color between these two. To my eye, I think blue looks darker than red, but those are both the darker colors. Whenever you're gonna be mixing colors, you wanna start with the lightest color first and then slowly make it darker, because it's easier to always make the color darker to adjust it, and it's harder if it's too dark to go backward to make it lighter. So the first color we're gonna make is orange. I'm just gonna take a tiny bit. I have my pool of yellow already. I'm gonna put a tiny bit of red on that top. I don't wanna mix it into the red, just a tiny bit, because the yellow is lighter and it's gonna eat that color. So I can pick that up. And I'm gonna start blending my colors together. It's important as you're mixing, you wanna take your paintbrush and scoop all of the side off and then roll it, like I showed you earlier before we started. That's gonna help keep all of the paint mixed evenly. And I wanna keep going until I see no streaks. It should be smooth, evenly mixed. And I'm gonna continually try and get everything from the edge and bring it down. So this looks like light orange to me. This is not orange enough. This looks a little bit more yellow orange, does it not? So I need to add some more red. This is what I'm talking about. If you don't put too much paint in at first, it's gonna be easier to control. So I'm adding more red because I want it to look like a true orange. And I'm gonna scoop all the paint off the top of my area. There we go. That is a perfect orange. So I'm gonna load up my brush, and now I'm gonna put my orange. Again, trying to go light as I can. And then I'm also gonna take my orange and I'm going to do it on my complementary colors. If you don't have enough paint to mix with, if you're struggling and you feel like you're just scraping a small thin coat, that means you need more paint. It should look like mine, where you have paint to work with. Don't be afraid to use the paint. It's your material. You can get more if you need it. So now I've made my orange. And I'm gonna come around, I'm gonna make yellow. Is that more yellow? Green. You probably make that one the next person. Good. And the next color I'm gonna make is green. So I'm gonna take my pool of yellow and I'm gonna mix some blue into it. And again, doing the same thing. If it doesn't look dark enough, I'm gonna add more blue. It shouldn't look like it should look like a true green. Not too light, because then it's gonna be yellow green. So I'm gonna add more blue. There we go. That's a good green. And now I'm gonna put my green in. And do the same. Think about dark green, not light green, dark green. If it's light green, it has too much yellow. There we go. Dark green on both. Remember, we're using both worksheets simultaneously. So this is my complementary color side. That's the original side. And then the final triad color is called violet. And most people are confused by this because you've probably learned it as purple. And purple is also an acceptable term. But the reason why we call it violet is because when Isaac Newton, he took a prism and he put it into reflected light. Have you guys seen the Pink Floyd album cover that shows the triangle? That's an illustration of what he did. And so it basically showed the visible spectrum of color that we don't see normally, because it's invisible to the naked eye. So he took that and he bent it into a circle, which created a color wheel. So when he bent the color spectrum together, the red and the blue touch each other, and that creates violet. So it's a combination. It's half red, half blue. So when we're doing and this is the most difficult for everybody, I'm not sure why, but I'm going to take some of my red I'm going to put it in another well. And then I'm going to take some blue. It's really important that if you got some of another color into your paint, try to avoid using any of that because it will change what your color looks like. So I'm now adding an equal amount of that blue into the red. And it should make a perfect purple. If it's too red, that means you need more blue. If it's too blue, then you need to add more red. You just go with the opposite. But it should look like a purple that looks like Barney or Grimace from McDonald's. And now we're going to add our violet. And violet is also purple. And I'm going to also include the violet on my complementary page. Set aside. Everybody doing good? Anybody need help? I'm gonna come around and check out what we're doing. Good. This is a little too like dark green. Good. I think we're using more paint. Like this is here. You see much more. And the final color combination that we're going to talk about is the tertiary colors. Tertiary colors are the third, it's basically two sets of the triad. So there's actually four triad combos in general that you could use as a color combination. And you get tertiary colors by combining the primary colors and the secondary colors together. So to get our secondary colors together, we mix, for example, red and yellow together to get orange, or yellow and blue to get green. So now to get the tertiary colors, we're going to combine the primaries and the secondaries together. So when we mix red and green together, we'll get, red and violet together, we're going to get red violet. If we mix blue and green, we're going to get blue green, etc. Okay, and that's why we name it the tertiary colors. So I'm going to put that down and I'm going to show you. So tertiary is also part of the triad family of color combinations and color harmonies that you can use. And this is where we combine primary and secondary. We also want to think about what the color says. So we just did violet, for example. So if I'm going to make red violet, I'm going to take the violet I already made and I'm going to add more red to it. Okay? So I'm going to take some of that violet. I'm going to put it over here. And I want to add a little bit of red to it. And I need to add a little bit more. And as you know, if you notice, it should look, that had white in there accidentally from another paint. It should look like the purple, like a brick red almost. Here, I'll just use. There we go. I'll get more red. There we go. That is red violet. So it's going to have the violet and red mixed together. And it's going to look like it is brick red, red violet. All right, so it's not going to be purple, but it's going to look like it's red with a little bit of violet in it. And this is where, when we start to color mix, where you really want to keep your colors clean. So I always use the water to wash it off. Then I take my paper towel and I try to get all the excess water off and make sure I get all the paint off of it. So for the next one, for red orange, I'm going to go back to my orange. I'm going to take some of my orange away, put it in a separate well, and I need to get some red. And I'm going to mix that together, and it should look like red with orange in it. So it should not look like my orange, and it should not look like my red. It's going to be orange, a little bit of red in it. If you need more orange, you just have to mix more orange. And once we get done learning how to mix the colors, I'll have pre-made colors for you to use. We're just doing this now so that you understand how to use the paint and how to create those colors. And doing this will also help you appreciate that we have, we have, the availability of like companies like Crayola that create synthetic, which means fake colors for us to use so abundantly in our classrooms. So if you can imagine when, artists would have to go to the port of Venice and purchase, rubies to crush and make pigment for red, or they'd have to buy sapphires and crush the sapphire jewels to make blues. Yellow ochres were created from the earth, like from flowers and dirt. And then they would mix it with binders, typically oils like walnut oils or olive oils, and paint with those. So companies have made chemicals that will produce and mimic those bright, beautiful colors that they would have to do. The next one we're going to practice is blue-green. On top, you can go in any order you want. So for blue-green, I'm going to take my green color, which I have over here. Actually, need a little bit more yellow. Anytime you need more paint, just let us know. I can get it. So if you run out of color, you just have to remix it, which I'm doing now. So I put yellow. I'm doing yellow green, and I just put a little bit of green in it. It should look like almost like it's yellow, but it has a tiny bit of green. See the difference there? It almost looks like it's yellow, but just a tiny bit of green, and that makes yellow green. Push my brush down. Maybe I need a little bit more blue. Yeah, that's better. Make sure you get everything mixed up properly. There we go, yellow green. So it should look like a lighter green It should not be the same darkness as the green you already made. It should be lighter. And it should look more yellow with some green in. Okay? And we'll use the same technique for our yellow-orange. I already have my orange pre-mixed, so I can just take my orange and dip it into my yellow to create that yellow-orange. Same thing here, it should look predominantly yellow with orange in it. It should be lighter than our orange, but darker than our yellow. And that is how you get yellow-orange. And then our final colors were blue-green. So I'm going to take my green, and I'm going to mix my blue into my green. And this is how you get turquoise. Blue-green is basically turquoise. You just add some white to it. So you mix green, then you add blue to get our blue-green, which is usually referred to as teal or turquoise. Actually, one of my favorite colors. And then the final one is blue-violet. So we start with blue, and then we add the violet to it. So it should look more blue. I'm just going to put it there. And the violet, I'll mix it in with the violet. If it's too purple or red, then you add more blue to it. It should look more like blue, like what it says, blue with violet in it. Alrighty. So that should be all the colors for the first basic color sheets. Stop.